My name is Rebecca, and I am from Aspen. I want to share an incident that happened in my university hostel. I won't mention the name to avoid issues. This happened in 2022. My younger sister Zoe and I enrolled in a BEd program. The university was 4 hours away, so we stayed in the hostel. It was the beginning of winter. Our brother dropped us off and left the same day. Our room wasn't very clean, but we adjusted. The next morning, the cleaners came and we set up our belongings. The first few days were fine, but then strange things began. Let me describe the hostel so you understand. The hostel had a main gate leading to a corridor with 8 rooms, 4 on each side. At the end, the washrooms. Then the hallway turned, leading to another section. Our room was the first in the corridor. There were no other students, only teachers. Among students, only my sister and I. Our room was large, almost a hall. Since no other students were there, we got that room. Because our classes were in the second shift, I stayed in the hostel during the day. We used the fan. Since we were from a colder region, we felt hot. Whenever we turned on the fan, we heard voices, familiar voices, calling our names. My sister heard them too. Sometimes noises outside the windows like a party or a wedding. We couldn't understand the words, but when we looked, no one was there. Sometimes dishes clattered in the kitchen, but when we turned off the fan, silence. We ignored it. Maybe just our imagination. The washrooms in our section were closed, so we had to go to the other section. That section was empty. We had heard a teacher lived there once, but left in fear. At first, we ignored things, but gradually we realized something else was with us. My sister and I went outside and headed towards the kitchen. Some workers were there. We asked them if they had come to our room. They said they hadn't been near our side since morning. All the teachers in the hostel had gone to the university to teach. During the day, the entire hostel was empty. Our classes were in the second shift, so we spent the whole day there, alone. That evening, we returned from our classes, tired. Our food was delivered to our room. That night, my sister and I were sitting downstairs, eating. There was a cupboard on the wall with open drawers. We kept our books there and other things. A water bottle was also placed there. While I was eating, I heard a gurgling sound, the bottle, as if someone was drinking from it, forcefully. Without looking, I scolded my sister. "You scared me. Drink properly. Don't make so much noise with the bottle," she replied. "What happened? I'm eating with you. The bottle is lying over there." I looked. The bottle was far away. We both realized something else was going on. Quietly, we continued eating. Some food fell on my plate, so I kept it in the drawer. But in the morning, the leftover food was less, as if someone had eaten it during the night. One night, I brought salt from the kitchen. The food was less salty. After adding the salt, I kept the remaining salt in a plate and in the same drawer. Morning came. There were finger marks on the plate, large marks, not human fingers, as if someone had picked up the salt from there. That day we had an exam. I quickly got ready. The exam was in the second shift. After finishing it, I returned. Ate, then we went to sleep. My sister fell asleep first. The fan wasn't working properly, so I took a blanket and slept under the fan. It was slightly cold. Without a blanket, we'd feel cold. Without the fan, we couldn't sleep. My sister was sleeping on the left side. I turned off the light, set the fan to low speed, covered myself from head to toe with the blanket, and started using my phone. Suddenly, the fan stopped. I thought maybe the power had gone out, but when I removed the blanket, the charger light was still on. I ignored it, covered myself again. A while later, the fan suddenly started running at full speed. By then, I had realized something was trying to disturb us. I tried not to pay attention and closed my eyes, too scared to sleep. My sister was already asleep. I didn't want to wake her up. She was tired, and she was easily scared by things like this. A little later, I felt something under my pillow, like a hand searching. I thought it might be my sister. I called out 3-4 times. "What are you looking for? If you're looking for the torch, it's on the side table." No response. I started getting angry. I removed the blanket, looked. My sister, still sleeping, on the bed. No one else was in the room. Fear, pure fear. It might not sound scary now, but in that moment, the terror was indescribable. I started reciting prayers. Tried to sleep. Minutes passed. Then a loud thud, a heavy sound, inside the room. I immediately got up, turned on the light, my sister, lying on the floor, in the same position as before. I called out. She woke up, looked around, confused. She didn't understand. What had happened? I was terrified, but I tried to act normal, even tried to laugh. She asked, "What happened?" I said, "Nothing. You just fell off the bed in your sleep." Let me tell you the story. My sister was lying on the bed with half of her body covered by the blanket, but the blanket was still neatly placed on the bed and she was lying on the floor as if someone had picked her up and thrown her down. The sound of her falling was so loud, I thought she must have broken a bone or gotten seriously hurt. When I asked her if she was hurt, she said, "No, I'm fine." If a person falls on the floor with such force, they would at least feel some pain, but she was completely fine. I told her to come and sleep with me so she wouldn't fall again. I was deeply scared inside, but I didn't think it was appropriate to tell her what was happening in our room. That whole night, I couldn't sleep. We both slept under the same blanket. The next morning, we went about our daily routines, but when night came again, I felt terrified in that same room. Because of the exams, I hadn't slept properly before, and after that incident, I stayed awake the whole night, so I was very sleepy. As soon as I finished eating, I went to bed. That night, I didn't turn off the light, nor did I let my sister turn it off. I fell asleep quickly. Now, let me tell you the story from my sister's perspective. As soon as I fell asleep, my sister thought, "She's asleep, so I'll turn off the light," because she couldn't sleep with the light on. She turned off the light and came to sleep on the bed next to me. We had separate single beds, like in hostels. My sister said that as soon as she lay down with the blanket, after a while, she felt as if someone was pulling the blanket from the foot of the bed. This happened a couple of times. And when she looked, she saw a woman with red hair and very thin arms, suddenly sitting on her chest and trying to strangle her. My sister's whole body went numb. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak, as if her tongue had been pulled out. She tried to call out to me, but no sound came out. Then the woman removed her hands from my sister's throat and inserted her fingers into her mouth, trying to tear it open from one ear to the other. At that moment, my sister regained some strength and grabbed the woman's hands, pulling them out of her mouth with force. She started screaming, calling out to me. My sister was holding the woman's hands when suddenly I woke up and the woman disappeared. My sister clung to me, crying loudly. She was extremely scared and kept hugging me, sobbing uncontrollably. When I calmed her down and asked what happened, she told me everything. She was so scared, she wouldn't even let me go outside to call a teacher. Anyway, that night was very difficult for us. We couldn't sleep at all. The next morning, I told the teacher everything, and it turned out that such incidents kept happening to everyone in that hostel. We changed our room and moved back to our old room in the first section because the activities there were milder. In that other room, it felt like those entities were trying to kill us. After changing rooms, we still experienced minor activities, the cupboard closing on its own, clothes disappearing, hearing voices of family members, but now they were more bearable because the other room was much worse. We spent the rest of the year in that hostel and returned home after a year.